We're now going to continue our learning around assessment and evaluation. We know from the results that we got from the survey, feedback surveys from staff from the June PA Day, that we were looking for a little bit more support on how to practically gather and embed conversations and observations in our assessment and evaluation plans. So the learning goal for today is to do just that, to increase the usage and reporting of conversations and observations to support overall student evaluation. So we are hoping that by the end of this session that you'll feel more confident in the various ways to collect the evidence, to document the evidence, and how to actually put it into Aspen. And finally, we hope to increase confidence around feeling confident with your professional judgment to adjust a mark in Aspen based on the evidence you've collected and changing a possible grade in Aspen based on that. So we're going to start with a bit of a thinking routine just to get our minds on. So look at this graphic here in terms of various types of learning, evidence of learning. What do you see? What do you notice? And what do you wonder? Please pause the video now for 3 to 5 minutes. Welcome back. One of my favorite pieces of this graphic is the part about being a hunter and gatherer. We know sometimes for the students we have to work extra hard to find that evidence and to pull that evidence out of the student. It's sometimes the students who we're trying to support to get to a level 1, or maybe it's even a level to reach provincial standards, so from a 2 to a 3. And so for some of these students, the emergent thinking might not be evident in products at all, but revealed while observing how students work through a thinking task, or while they're conferencing with their peers or with the teacher about their learning. This is why aggregating points is not always the only way or reliable way to determine level 1 achievement. Specifically, what we mean by that is really considering the achievement chart categories and their descriptors for whatever overall expectation you're trying to assess. And so looking at those descriptors for level 1 is limited, level 2 is some, level 3 is considerable, and level 4 is thorough. To highlight this point, we're going to consider this exit ticket from grade 9 math, a possible class. In your table groups, we're asking you to look at the question on the exit ticket. It's got 4 components to it, and there are discussion prompts here on the screen. What should the marking scheme be for this exit ticket? Are all the questions worth the same? What mark would a student receive if they only got the first question right, or first 2 or 3? And then how would you record the mark? Please pause the video here to allow some discussion time for about 3 minutes. It is our hope that through this conversation with your table groups that you recognize that if we place the same value on all 4 of these questions, it might have a very different outcome from if we look at it from a achievement chart category perspective. So for example, if the student only attempted the first question and got it right, if you valued all 4 of them the same, that student would say it earned 25% on this exit ticket. But really, if they do that first question and only that first question, they are reaching a level 1. They are demonstrating a limited understanding. And so we really need to be careful about how we group expectations and the value we place on the different types of questions that we're assigning.
Gathering evidence of conversations and observations. We know that there are many ways to do this, and today we're going to look at 2 specific scenarios. The first is a planned approach, and the second is an individual approach. Scenario 1, planning for it. Selecting expectations from the curriculum to evaluate through observation for the class. What courses and strands lend themselves well to collecting observations? Please pause the video and take a few minutes to discuss among staff. Some of the more obvious courses that have skill-based components are subjects like phys ed, food and nutrition, and music. But most subjects have skill-based expectations that lend themselves to gathering evidence using observations. For example, strand A in most subjects should be embedded throughout the other strands, and these expectations are often observable skills that should be tracked over time, including transferable skills. These skills require students to have multiple opportunities to develop and improve throughout a semester, which can be documented through observations. During the last PA day, we had lots of questions about how do we do this? How does this transfer to a mark? And how can we make this manageable in our classrooms? Start by knowing what you are observing. Look at the curriculum and identify what expectations can be assessed through observation. Then, make a tracking tool that works for you. One option is to have one page per student. You can observe the same expectations multiple times throughout an assessment period on the same sheet. In this food and nutrition example, the skill-based expectations involve kitchen and food safety, food preparation, and kitchen literacy and numeracy, which are listed down the left-hand column, along with the look-fors. Along the top, I've included the achievement chart levels. Think about how you will categorize and quantify the achievement of your observations. When you're observing the student performing the skill, you can write the date and a little note in the appropriate column to document your observation. Remember that observations don't have to be done for every student every day. You can also track observations by class. This tracker for the same skill-based expectations from the previous example has the overall expectations along the top. I've also included specific look-fors in the bottom left corner. In this example, there are 4 columns to track the same expectation, so you can observe the same skill multiple times. It can make it easy to see trends and growth. You could also easily see which students you're missing data for. When you make your observation, quantify it and document it on the tracker. For example, if a student washes their hands thoroughly for 30 seconds, you could write a 4 in the food safety column. Finally, this third example is a template that works well for anecdotal notes. The expectations being observed is along the top, and there's space for the task description and date. Notice that the level of achievement is included with a brief note of the strengths and/or next steps. This template is a little more open, so it can be used to document conversations, observations, and products that assess the same overall expectation. At the bottom, you can see a sample legend that you could use to code your notes and keep track of where the data is coming from. The takeaway from this is that you need to know what you are observing, which comes directly from the curriculum, and that you need to document it in a way that works for you. This will help support your professional judgment when assigning a grade. So once we have our observations, how do we turn this into a mark? This can be done several ways depending on how you set up your categories in Gradebook. I will demonstrate one way using the previous food and nutrition example. So let's look at Susan and Michael. Susan has all level 3s for kitchen safety in September, and Michael has a level 3 and a few level 2s. So in Gradebook, I have my categories set up by strand. So I'll go in the food preparation skills category. And I have my 4 assignments entered in there. So kitchen safety, food prep, and numeracy and literacy in the kitchen. So Susan has mostly level 3s. So she will get a 75 for the kitchen safety. Michael has 1 level 3 and mostly level 2s, so he would get a 68. The values are based on the achievement chart categories and the percentages associated with each.
Scenario 2 looks more at the individual level. As the teacher, you recognize the need to provide a student who is struggling an opportunity to demonstrate understanding of an expectation to show what they know. For example, you have a student you know has limited or some knowledge of the content, but for whatever reason, you're not getting the evidence to support your professional judgment. They leave a question blank on a test, and they haven't submitted a few assignments. Remember that this is not every student. This is an individual case where you are trying to support a student to showcase their understanding of some overall expectations. Pause here and discuss in a group how you've included observations and conversations when addressing this scenario. So how do we gather this evidence? Re-examine which overall expectations the student has not yet met. Thinking about the achievement chart levels and categories, at this point it might not be about the missing marks or averages within a category for that student. To support your professional judgment, you can review the achievement charts or other rubrics. The categories or criteria will help determine what information you will need to gather. The evidence that you gather can be evaluated by assigning a level from the descriptors used in these charts. This might look like a conversation, an interview, rewording the question, scaffolding the question, providing level 1 type questions, prompting, or a leveled test. It doesn't necessarily matter what the task is, it matters what expectations are being revisited. So how do we track this and input it into Aspen? Reuse the original rubric or achievement charts to reevaluate. Adjust the mark accordingly into Aspen. So for example, if the student originally got 10 out of 25 on this assignment, which is a 40%, but you've given them an opportunity for a redo, and they've been able to provide that limited understanding, you can go in and adjust the mark. It is also important to track the change by inputting a comment for your records. So had a conversation on November 12th, demonstrated limited understanding, mark adjusted from 10 to 14. There's no one size fits all. As long as you are assessing curriculum expectations, documenting to support your professional judgment, and giving students opportunities to showcase what they know, you are on the right track.